Scott, so we, of course, spent the beginning of the week talking about the big Carney win in the 3 by-elections, the Liberal majority. So today was the first day, I guess, that they got together, the new Liberal caucus. So let's talk a little bit about that. I don't think the question is, were you surprised by this, right? I think the only by-election that was going to be a bit of a surprise was Terrebonne, which they ended up winning. I don't want to say handily, but I think the margin was somewhere around 700 votes. So your reaction to this, and what, if anything, this changes?
Well, I obviously expected it. Everybody expected it, because even if Terrebonne hadn't gone the way that it did, even if it didn't land in the Liberal column, which is, by the way, kind of a big deal. Like, it's a tough riding to win. I was surprised. I thought they might win it by more, just because there's so much wind at Carney's back and they were throwing so many resources at it. But even if they hadn't won that riding, we knew there was going to be a majority. I don't know about you, but still, I think the reality of it becoming a majority for this last couple of days kind of has hit a little harder than I expected. And to your question, I don't think it's going to change a lot in terms of the way people live their lives. It changes everything for government. They don't have to be live in fear that if they make a mistake, that this initiative could go sideways and then they might lose votes in the House of Commons and they could end up in trouble. I've lived in a minority government. I've lived in a majority government, and minorities are you're anxious all the time. So they don't have that. But for you and me, is Carney fundamentally going to change his priorities? Don't think so. Is he going to prorogue Parliament? No. Is he going to change his cabinet? Not right away, I don't think so. We probably won't feel a big difference immediately. But still, you can feel the political effect of it, right? And in particular, I think the way Poilievre is talking and the interactions between Poilievre and the Prime Minister. So even though it was expected, even though it wasn't a surprise, you kind of feel the weight of it. You go, oh, wow. It's almost like Carney has really got the whip hand now. And if you're Poilievre, you're left wondering, geez, what next? Where next?
Well, okay, let me go back to a couple of things. Number one, given this majority that they now have, and I know some people point out, Scott, that it's a rather slim majority, but there is, I know the question was asked as well of the Prime Minister, does this mean you'll try to get a bigger one and call an election? And he kind of sloughed that off and said no. Do you think that's a possibility of calling a general election to win an even bigger majority, or is that off the table?
I think it's off the table for the near term. I think that was a viable option this spring, and I think Carney decided against it. And I know that he had people around him that were suggesting, listen, these polls, man, we're riding high. Struck the iron is hot, bank this thing. And I think he recognized shrewdly, especially for a guy who's never been in politics before, that the reason he's high in the polls, the reason he's in a position to form a majority government in an unprecedented way, a combination of people joining you by crossing the floor and winning by-elections, is because people don't think of him as a politician. They don't see him in a partisan way. The country feels like it's under siege. We're a country at war. Donald Trump has declared an economic and trade war on us, and we've decided that Carney is the right leader. And he sort of floats a bit above politics. Well, if he tries to bank a win and calls an election, then he just sounds like another politician. And so all that support, all that grace, the very thing that put him in the position that he's in, I think could be taken away by Canadians. And I think he recognized that. I do think people are mistaken when they say, well, this means there's for sure not an election until 2029. Because the secret of Mark Carney's success has been the counter of Trump. And I don't think he wants to wait until 2029 when Trump isn't around. I think he's going to call an election before Trump is gone. But that takes me more into 2027, maybe 2028. Unless Trump, decides that he wants to steal Baffin Island or, declare the Yukon his or something. And then, maybe we have a national showdown.
Yeah, well, he certainly wouldn't want to upset all his friends, many, many friends, great friends in Canada, as Donald Trump always points out, although the only one he ever mentions is Wayne Gretzky. But regardless...
many friends. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm not sure what your church-going habits are, but you may have heard he's very Jesus-like.
Yes,
and,
he is.
That makes him popular.
I tell you one thing, the memes that have surfaced online just for that are worth the price of admission, I think. Some of them are absolutely incredible. Anyway, I will ask
he does
Scott.
It again.
Yeah.
Like he did it the first time. They denied that he did it.
Yeah.
Then he puts another picture of himself up.
Yeah. With respect to Mark Carney, and this, the only other thing I want to touch on here, if I can, is this idea that now, with the hurdle of a minority government gone and the opposition, of course, that we're going to start to see things happen more quickly. Is that accurate, or do you think that's fair?
I think that's inaccurate, and that's a challenge for Carney, and he's going to have to try to manage that, because people are going to say, well, I guess you're off the leash, man, so let her rip. Like, where's the pipeline? Where's the trade deal? Actually, I shouldn't say trade deal, because I'm not sure Canadians even want a trade deal right now with Trump. But, build those houses, do all these things. You're unfettered. Having worked in government, I think Carney is doing everything he can, like genuinely, because it's in his political interest, doing everything he can to move the machinery of government to move faster and produce results. But it is a battleship, man. It is hard to move. And, build a pipeline. Okay, I got to find a private sector proponent. Well, there isn't one. You know what would help? If you put like $1 squillion in taxpayers' money into the pot. So does Carney do that? Not do that. Buy those jets. Oh, really? Which country are you going to go for? If you buy the European jets, well then Trump's going to go crazy, and that is going to torpedo you in talks. If you buy the U.S. jets, people are going to say, well, what the hell's going on here? I thought we were trying to relieve our... So there's lots and lots of constraints and factors that still exist, independent of the by-election victory in Scarborough Southwest. And I think one of the challenges for him is he's going to have to explain to people, look, we're not going to see like the magical appearance of a bunch of different things by June 1st. And I don't think he's done a lot of that. I don't think he's done much to diminish expectations or dampen or, contextualize expectations. That could be a challenge for him.
All right, let me talk about what's going on here. We swore in a new premier today, Christine Frechette, becoming the second premier in Quebec history. So a lot of people are pointing out, and because I think she kind of led us to believe that there'd be a fairly quick announcement from her as to what she might be doing now that she is the premier. One of them, of course, tags on to the federal gas saving, that 10 cents that's coming off a liter of gas. We've heard nothing yet. Is time of the essence for her, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. You get one chance to make a first impression. And, even though she's a semi-familiar face, the reality is that she's trying on a new suit of clothes right in front of Quebec, and so she gets a chance to be evaluated in that respect. And so I'd move very quickly. I was surprised, I was saying to Alice off Mike, I was surprised that she didn't name her cabinet today. Like, typically you would get sworn in and you would introduce a new cabinet. I would have hit the ground running with a ton of stuff. So I don't think she's going to wait long. I think she'll probably make an announcement on affordability gas tax. I think that's all going to happen in the next day or two. I think she'll name her cabinet, obviously, people were saying next week. I'm not, I don't know. If I was her, I would be throwing everything against the wall. She has to create maybe I'll give him a second chance. Maybe I'll give her a first look. She's got to create that dynamic immediately. And it's fleeting. And it's very hard to get noticed. I mean, even in Quebec, the truth of the matter is the world is just jam-packed with news and events right now. So if you're going to punch through, you're going to have to punch through right now. All that being said, I will say this. Obviously, they look like they're destined for doom. But the camera does love her, and she is a fresh and interesting face. And so, I think she has a little bit of that charismatic factor, but she's going to have to harness it 110%.
Yeah, and of course, to her benefit, her credit as well, she's not Francois Legault, which is a huge, help for her, obviously.
No question. And, she's not going to, she can't come in from the outside in the way that Carney did and all those sorts of things. But just the change, and she's always constantly has to be thinking about these three things. I'm not what the world doesn't want, Trump, everything else outside of us. I'm not Legault, and I'm not pick your poison, right? Your opposition leaders that you're going to be facing, you have to be something that you have to be the other. And Legault is the most important test right away.
But, to that point then, Scott, this idea, if she has to name a cabinet, remember, the people she's going to name for the most part, although she's kind of hinted there may be some who are, not cabinet people already, you have to be very careful. But those are the people who a lot of, voters will look at and going, wait a sec, that was the guy who was this minister in the last government, and, this party is the lowest in the polls it's ever been. So why would you appoint someone like that back into your party now that you're leading it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point. That's why I thought she should have appointed a cabinet today, because I thought she should have been bold and said, I'm appointing 4 new faces, people who are not even sitting in the National Assembly.
Right.
They're going straight into my cabinet. There'll be candidates in the next election. And, if you want to argue with me about the propriety of putting people in cabinet who have not yet entered the legislature, well, fill your boots. But I'm bringing in new blood. I would have signaled change. I would have done everything to signal change, and I would have eclipsed all those old faces by bringing in a choir of new people.
Okay, interesting take. Scott, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.